StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get to use those personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is we are starting what will be a three-part series on the biggest lies you have been told regarding personal development. We're going to break down the biggest lies in personal development, and I'm going to set you straight on what the truth is in juxtaposition of those lies. But before we begin doing any of that, I remind you all of two things. First of all, my daily motivation, Monday motivation messages, guaranteed to have you focus, sharp, and on point, start your day, your week, respectively. Once we start sending them again, you'll be getting your text from the following number. So send a text now to this number, 305-384-6894. Once we start sending those messages again, you'll be getting those straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is a place where you can get direct coaching from me, where you can have me as your direct coach, get access to our most important frameworks around mindset, strategy, systems, and implementation and accountability, all based on your highest level of performance done consistently so you can produce results. That is all happening at workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is down below in the description to this episode. Now, with that out the way, let's get into the topic here today, which again is the biggest lies being told in personal development. And again, this is going to be a three-part series. Let me make sure I'm right on that, man. A three-part series. We got 1, 2, 3. Yes, three-part series. And then after that, we're going to talk about professional development, which is a different thing. So I talked about personal development a lot. I first got introduced to the concept of personal development. Well, I got introduced to the concept just from reading books. I've always been a big reader. My mother is an educator, and she had my sister and I reading books from a very young age. So that's where I got started with reading, period. But I didn't know that there was a genre called personal development until it was probably around the time I was in college, maybe age 20 or 21, when I got introduced to a concept called network marketing. And when I went to a couple of the meetings, the speaker on stage often referenced personal development. And he would say to the people in the room, if you're going to build a business, you must also build yourself. And that made perfect sense to me. He said the way you build yourself is through investing in personal development. So that's where I first got introduced to the concept. And it made perfect sense to me the way that it was explained. And that got me to looking for and seeking out books that were specifically in this area. And the one that I give the most credit to, at least for the first time I was reading it, because it was noted as personal development. I had been reading these books before, but the first time I read one specifically because of that phrase was a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And if you haven't read that book, you should read it. It's one of the most popular personal development books ever written. And that book was the first one that showed me that there was a way that you could consciously and intentionally alter your patterns of thought, which will lead to a difference in patterns of behavior, which leads to a difference in patterns of outcome. In other words, the be, do, have process exemplified through that book, or at least that was the first time I read it explained that way. And there are thousands of other books on these subjects, many of which are written by me. Now, being that I talk about personal development a lot, you should understand it is the foundation of how I got started and is the foundation of everything that I do. I bring everything back in conversations we have here. Everything comes back to the self. Everything comes back to the individual. I don't care if you're an athlete, a librarian, an entrepreneur, a side hustler, you work for the government, you're in the military, whatever it is that you're doing. We always bring the conversation back to the person in the mirror because that's the only thing we truly have control over. And it is the number one thing that I'm going to make sure my children, for example, engage in and understand. It's personal development. So in this three-part mini-series, I'm going to tell you the biggest lies you've been told, or the biggest lies that maybe you have heard when it comes to personal development. I'm going to tell you why they get advised to people as lies, why these lies are hurting you, and what the actual truths are. Okay, I'm going to clear all of that up here in this three-part series. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is the biggest lies that you've been told when it comes to personal development. Number one, that positive thinking is all it takes. All right, this is nonsense. Positive thinking is not all it takes. That is a lie. Now, let me be clear. Positive thinking is a good thing. I didn't say positive thinking is not good. I said it's not all it takes. Norman Vincent Peale wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. Great book. You should read it. I am a fan of this book. Donald Trump, by the way, former President Trump, I don't know by the time you listen to this if he's become president again or president-elect or not, but former President Donald Trump actually grew up going to a church in New York that was run by Norman Vincent Peale, the author of The Power of Positive Thinking. I can tell you a little bit about the way Donald Trump sees himself and the way he looks at life as a side note. Now, there are many benefits to thinking positively, but thinking positively alone is not all that it takes. The lie is that if you just think positively, good things will happen without you doing anything to support these outcomes. This is absolutely not true. This is the concept that the book, The Secret, was based around. They alluded to it very strongly and they didn't fill in the rest of the gaps. So if you read the book, The Secret, or saw the movie called The Secret, and there were many famous people who got involved, Oprah was heavily involved in it. That is not what it's all about. And it's also the law of attraction that many of you have heard of. I talked about the law of attraction in episode number 2383 and 2384, where I explain how the law of attraction really works. I broke it down into a two-part series. And that part takes this positive thinking thing and it tells you the rest of it because they only tell you one part. So what this whole concept of positive thinking is all it takes is really propaganda because it's a truth, but it's a truth taken out of context. It's a fact taken out of context. The positive thinking is useful, but if that's all you do is think positively, you're not going to get any kind of outcome that you want. So it's not giving you the rest of the story. I gave you the rest of the story in episode 2383 and 2384, and I'm touching on it right now. Okay, so the lie is just think positively, good things happen. Instead, you want to think positively also while also doing positive things that are a reflection of the person you decided to be. That's actually what you want to do. Decide who you want to be, and then you take positive action based on that being while remaining positive in thought. This combination then creates positive outcomes for you. Now, I made that sound very simple, and it only took me 30 seconds to explain it, but it may take years for it to come to fruition for you. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. All right, just because something doesn't work as fast as you did it does not mean it doesn't work, period. You might need to keep doing it. You may need to give a little bit more effort, give it a little bit more time, and continue long enough to see it through to a result. So that's how the combination creates the outcomes that you want. And on top of this, folks, you want to have a structure in your life that consistently gives you solid reasons to think positively. Because it's hard to think positive when you got a bunch of not positive things happening around you. So you want to structure your life such that thinking positively is not a struggle or a grind for you, that it comes naturally to you. So you don't have to trick yourself about the positive thinking. Because if you have a bunch of negative around you, you got to keep tricking yourself to think positively. That becomes a battle of willpower, and eventually your willpower will run out. So you don't want it to be that type of game. So you don't want to have to trick yourself about positive thinking. You should be thinking positive because positive things are actually happening and you have positive influences and supporting influences around you. One way you can do this is to get around other people who are thinking positive themselves. So you all are reinforcing each other. And if you're not physically around these people, then they can be part of your associations, even if you don't know them. You can have a positive thinking person around you by subscribing to their YouTube channel or following them on social media or reading their articles or buying their books or signing up for their courses. That's the way you can have someone as an association without ever actually meeting them in person. You just need to consume more of their stuff than you are of anyone else who might be bringing you opposite energies. So that's the first point. Point number two. Today's topic, once again, is the biggest lies you've been told about personal development. Number two, you can be anything that you want to be. Unfortunately, this is not true. Now, there are things that we used to tell, this is the common thing, rather, that we used to tell kids back in the day, or that kids used to tell me, I guess. Now, I don't know what people are telling these kids these days, but this is not true. You cannot be anything that you want to be. Now, you have a wide range of things that you can be, but being anything is a bit of a stretch. Right? That's kind of a stretch. So if you're 5 feet 4 inches tall and Asian, I'd be willing to bet money you're probably not going to make it as a professional basketball player, at least not in the United States. Now, I don't care how much you want it. I don't care how positively you think. And I don't care how hard you work on your game. That's probably not going to happen. You can be anything as you want to be. You can be anything you want to be as long as you have some aptitude for doing the work and the development required to get there, and you're able to position yourself for the opportunity. Then you can be anything you want to be. Let me give you those two requirements again. You can be anything you want to be as long as you have some aptitude for the work. Meaning, do your natural abilities fit in with what is being looked for in that space? In other words, if you want to be a basketball player, for example, what's one physical attribute we can usually attribute to basketball players? Usually they're pretty tall. So if you're not that tall, then you don't have the natural aptitude to be a basketball player. Now, does that mean that you absolutely can't make it? No. But are the odds stacked against you? Yes, they are. So can you be anything you want to be? Technically, you might still have an outside chance, but I wouldn't bet money on it. Now, I'm not saying you can't go and bet on it if you want to. The challenge is you're betting with your time, and once you use it, you ain't getting it back. So make a wise decision. So as long as you are willing to do the things and have the aptitude to do the things in that space and doing the work, and you are able to position yourself for the opportunity, then you can make it happen. Positioning yourself for the opportunity means, can you get in the room where it's actually happening? Because just because you're good at something and you know your stuff doesn't mean you can be in the room. Like, there are many things that I think I'm pretty good at and better than someone who might be in the room at that space. But since I'm not in the room, doesn't matter that I'm better than that person, because nobody knows me as well as they know that person, whoever it may be. And you probably have aspects of your life that fit that same description. So you can be anything you want to be, given that you can get in the room and given that you have the aptitude to actually perform. All right, both of those are required. Okay. So you got to be able to position yourself for the opportunity. Fact is, most people don't have this wide range of things that they want to be. As once we learn what our natural talents and abilities are, we tend to go in that direction. That's what most people do. And I would suggest that's what you do. You want to be smart. What you should do is you should move yourself in the direction of your natural talents and your natural abilities. If you don't know what your natural talents and abilities are, then you need to do some exploration. You can try different things out and see what things or what parts of what things make the most sense for you. I remember when I was sitting down with one of my early mentors when I was just getting out of professional sports and going into entrepreneurship. And she had me list every job you ever had in your life. And I started listing all the jobs. And she said, what were you most valued for at this job and at this job and at this job? And I started answering the questions. And as we went down the list, it became very obvious as we're going down this list. And the jobs I was listing, I'm not talking about being a basketball player jobs. I'm talking like working at CVS and McDonald's and a movie theater, those kind of jobs. And as I kept listing what I was most valued for at each of these jobs, it became really obvious as my mentor was going through the exercise. So it's obvious that you are often noted and valued for your reliability, your consistency, and your discipline. You need to base whatever you're doing should be based somewhat around this, because it's coming up over and over and over again. This is going back to when I was a teenager. And lo and behold, look where we are. It's the consistency, the reliability, the discipline. This is the thing that you were able to get those jobs and be valued at those jobs. And again, these are not jobs I was trying to build a career in. You were valued at those jobs because of that. And those same traits that I was using then are the same traits that fuel a lot of what I do now. So if you're not sure where your talents and abilities lie, maybe look to your past and also look to your present. What are you doing now? Where are you spending your time? Where's your energy going? Where's your attention going? So the truth is, you can be anything you want to be within reason, given that you have some ability and you're willing to do the work. All right, so you need both of those. If you're not willing to do the work, you can't be that thing. If you're not willing to do the work to be a basketball player, you can't be one. If you're not willing to do the work to be a politician, you probably won't be successful. And then you need the natural aptitude. You want a combination. If you have no aptitude and you try to force your way into a place, I say your ceiling is to be mediocre. That's your ceiling, mediocrity. People who become great have some natural aptitudes for the thing that they do. Look around and you'll see this. Point number 3. Today's topic, again, we are picking up on, or we're starting out part 1 of our mini series here, which is the biggest lies that have been told about personal development. Number 3, follow your passion and the money will follow. This is not true. This one is much more, I would say, more fully a lie than the other ones. The other ones, there is some fact in it, but they're taken out of context. This one is much more closer to just being a full-fledged lie. All right, many of us are passionate about a lot of things that we should never try to build a business around or try to make money from. So you can be passionate about your favorite TV show on Netflix. That doesn't mean that you should become an actor or an actress or a producer. Maybe you're passionate about laying on the sand at the beach with your significant other because you just love going to the beach, and the beach is really close to where you live and you haven't been there in a long time, and that's what you're passionate about. Doesn't mean you should try to make a job out of laying on the sand and doing nothing. You can be passionate about the music of your favorite band. Doesn't mean you should become a guitarist or a singer or a rapper. You can be passionate about going to school board meetings and cussing out the school board because you don't like how they are miseducating your child with indoctrination rather than education. You can be very passionate about that. Doesn't mean you should go become the town crier who just shows up at events and cusses people out. All right. So you should not necessarily try to make a business out of things just because you have some passion behind the thing. What will make you more money in life is focusing on where your time, attention, and energy goes, assuming that you are providing value. So you got to provide value. You want to make more money in life. It's not about let me show up and work harder and give more time. You just got to provide more value to the right people who want it. This is how the marketplace works. You give value to people who want it, they will give you what you want. Is it possible to be passionate about something and make money from it? Absolutely. There are people who are passionate about a thing and they make money from it. You can say that I'm passionate about personal and professional development, but I could very easily engage in a lot of this without doing anything to make money from it. I could just put this stuff out for free and not charge anybody anything and be completely fine doing things that way. It is the combination of market forces, intentionality, and passion that can allow your passion to make you money. If you need you need the full recipe, not just parts of the recipe. And this is the issue with a lot of stuff you hear in personal development, whether you hear from other people, you see it online, or you see people who are positioning themselves as so-called experts, regurgitating stuff that is not true. And this is the reason why I'm here to point this stuff out. That's what I'm going to do through this 3-part series here. So again, combination of market forces, that means what people are actually spending money on and what they're willing to spend money on, intentionality, people's choices, and passion, or what people may be excited about. All of those 3 things together can put you in position to make money, but you got to have a full recipe. You can't just take the pieces that are comfortable for you. Let's recap. Today's class was part 1 of our series, The Biggest Lies Told in Personal Development. And again, I talk about personal development a lot, so this is a very important point, or a very important series, each point in the series. Number 1, positive thinking is all it takes. And positive thinking is a good thing. Norman Vincent Peale wrote the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. It is very useful. At the same time, you can't just think positive without taking positive actions and taking those actions and directing them towards a positive outcome. Number 2, you can be anything you want to be. This is not true. You can be anything you want to be within reason, given that you have some aptitude for that thing and given that you're willing to do the work in that thing. A lot of people want to be a thing, but they're not willing to do the work and they don't have the aptitude. Then they're wondering why it's not working. Well, it's because you have the formula incorrect. Number 3, follow your passion and the money will follow. This one's not true. We can be passionate about a lot of things. You can be passionate about having sex with your wife. Doesn't mean you should become a porn star. All right. And you can be passionate about laying on the beach. Doesn't mean you should become I don't even know what that is, a beach influencer, whatever that would be. Doesn't mean you should do something just because or try to make money from something just because you're passionate about it. All right, you should stick with doing the things that the market actually wants and the market is willing to pay for and which you can deliver. That's where you can make the money. If you happen to be passionate about it, great. But if you're not, that's fine as well. I know people who sell furniture for a living at big furniture companies, people who are sell concrete, people who install doors, people who lay carpet for a living, and they make full-time income from this, doing this as a business. Do you have to be passionate about carpet? You got to be passionate about furniture? No, you don't have to be passionate about it. You can just show up and be disciplined about your work. But I know these same people do other things that have nothing to do with their jobs on weekends and on the holidays. That's where their passion goes. And your passion sometimes needs to stay just that, as a hobby. And that's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All that said, folks, make sure you go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can have me as your direct coach and work with me directly, hand in hand, while we take you through this process of personal and professional development for your performance, consistency, and producing results. That is, again, at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Tomorrow, part 2 of the series. Work on your game. Dre, all